Hello again. This is Ken Ball, president of Custom Benefit Consultants, and we're back on Boss Moves and Benefits here, as always, with founder and CEO of CBC, Robin Ball.
Yeah, and I'm excited today because we have a real boss in the room. Very excited to talk about her.
Yes, our guests today are Lisa Hodson, the CEO of Allied National, and Mike Hoffman, the president of Arizona Benefits. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, excited
of
to be
course.
here. Welcome.
So I think, again, Robin, I think this continues our trend of just having different viewpoints, different perspectives on employee benefit plans and how we have to bring in these different moving pieces, different viewpoints in order to create products.
Oh, no. I'm really excited about this because we had talked in an earlier episode with Mike about, building out products for our Costco marketplace, and Lisa's been pivotal to this. And I really want to learn or let our audience know a little bit about you because I'm so impressed with you, clearly. But talk about Allied and how it started and how your role has evolved to CEO. I think that's a very special story.
Yeah, that sounds good. So Allied National, we are a third-party administrator. So what that means is a long way of saying that we look and feel a lot like an insurance carrier, except we're neutral on taking the risk. So we partner with some other carriers behind us, usually A-rated partners, to cover the stop-loss piece of it. But at the end of the day, it's our program, it's our design. We work with different distribution partners to create tailored solutions for their needs and package it all together and make it accessible. So that's our space.
That's pretty show. Well, tell about your background and how you got to be CEO. And
oh my gosh, happenstance in a lot of ways. So I feel like this is actually my third iteration of careers. I started my career out in Washington D.C. working for the federal government. Moved to Kansas City. After that, doing consulting. Loved the consulting. Loved the challenge of it. I'd show up every week with a different client, a different problem to solve. But the travel eventually got a little tiring for me. Mm-hmm. And then I lucked into a wonderful position at a company called GEHA that served federal employees with their health plans. And that was my first foray into self-funding for a large employer. And I got to see the value that you could create in that space for a large employer. And then I got to take all that knowledge of what large employers are doing to bring together the best in breed for cost containment and then bring it to Allied, where we focus on smaller businesses. Mm-hmm. So we talk a lot about how we focus on big company benefits tailored for small businesses.
There's such a great pedigree with Allied National, right? Company started in the 1960s, right?
Yeah.
And then the next generation of that family running it, maybe it's a great story.
It is such a great story. Yeah, family owned and operated. It was founded by the Ashley family. It was a husband and wife duo. The husband was really the sales head, and the woman, her name was Ernie, actually ran the office. So talk about, original bosses. She was just such a great inspiration. Awesome. And then they passed that on down to 3 of the 4 sons were in the business, and they were in it, and they're still kind of in it today. We're holding on to 2 of them. Bill and Gary, love you guys. Holding on to 2 of them. And so then they looked around about 5 years ago and said, hey, we just don't have the right 3rd gen. And so they had 2 different strategies. They brought in a new external leadership team, and I feel very blessed to have been part of that, picture. And then they also partnered with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Alabama as they were founding the 90-degree company, 90-degree benefit companies. So we are one of the TPAs that are part of the 90-degree family. And they are just rock stars. If you look at the volume that they have, they're a top 10 TPA nationwide. We're in 22 locations and 750 employees. So a huge, huge shop that we can plug into for expertise, bandwidth, resources. But you still have this family-owned and operated culture that resonates throughout the whole company. So it's the best of both.
And so how do you become CEO then?
Well, I think it's because they were looking for that 3rd generation. And I will say what inspired me into that, I'm from a small town. I'm a farmer's daughter. I just never even knew really what a CEO was, honestly. Like, it's not something that really existed where I'm from.
Aspired to.
Yeah. And so I would say it was the first CEO I worked for that saw that in me and spoke that into me and said, I think you could do this job. And I was like, what? Me? What? But I thought about it and I said, well, maybe. So started looking for opportunities where I could have that career path. That's one of the reasons that drew me to Ally, because I saw that. And I was fortunate enough to get to, work with Bill Ashley, the previous owner, so closely and learn from him and just be ready to step into the role.
Oh, he was so proud. Like when he was announcing that you were moving into that role, he was so proud. So
it's such a unique story. You don't see a lot of success stories with transitions with long-term owners like that, but the way they structured it and the way we've partnered, I think, is really unique, and it's allowed it to be such a successful journey.
That's awesome.
It's one of the reasons that when I picked up the phone after you guys started talking to us about this small group custom built product for the Costco solution, it's the first call was to the Allied National team and Bill Ashley to help maybe develop the vision, because part of it was, I knew Lisa was behind the scenes, and Bill was a visionary, has always been a visionary, good operator, understood the science as well behind the scenes, but he had the bench, which ultimately now is the leadership that could continue the vision, because again, that's pretty important too. The value that Costco wants to bring to this program, also they want to bring stability and longevity. So if we didn't have the next generation, so to speak, and knowledge that Lisa could lead the team, it would have probably maybe been a different call. So that was important and really reflects well on the team, but also delivers what Costco asked for.
So let's talk a little bit more broadly about the role of a third-party administrator, or as we often refer to just as a TPA. So just kind of summarize your initial description of effectively performing all the functions of an insurance carrier without taking on the risk. So if you were to describe, who's your customer?
For us,
yeah,
we have many customers and many stakeholders we serve. It usually starts with distribution is one of our customers. So in this case, it's you guys as partners with that. Our customer is also the small employer, first and foremost. And then it's also their employees, our members we serve. So we've got many stakeholders that we work to keep happy in the process and make sure they're all well served. I think that's one of the strengths of a TPA, is that you're that neutral arbiter that sits in the middle without really a stake in the game. So you can have neutral decision-making on how do you determine eligibility for this on behalf of the employer? How do you decide if this claim is eligible or not? We're neutral. We don't take the risk. It's not our money, but we're engaged to make those decisions on behalf of either the employer or the stop-loss carrier or both.
It's worth unpacking too a little bit what that means for people that don't speak insurance, right?
Sure.
So Lisa's team and the leadership that she gives does all of the administration, day-to-day claims paying, answering the phones, customer service reps on the phones, billing, premium collection, although in the Costco program, you guys do some special things with that. But in their wider business, they act as the quarterback in all of those things. So if there's a claim escalation, it goes to Lisa's team. They also work with folks like us on the sales side to onboard new groups. So we quote it, oftentimes working with her underwriting team. Once the case is sold, we work with you to get the right case information to them to load on system, and then their team takes it. And then, 8 months later, after they've been done paying claims, they look at it again and say, okay, what kind of renewal do we need to happen? So all of that is Lisa's team, and they execute on that every day.
One of the themes that we have here is creating value, right? So we're not in business if we're not creating value for our customers. We talk a lot about our relationship with Costco via the CBC Health Insurance Marketplace for Costco members. And our essential role is creating value for Costco members, right? And we do that in a lot of different ways. So looking at it from the perspective of a third-party administrator, you just described, you have various stakeholders, right? All through this distribution model. How do you create value for each of those stakeholders?
I think we try and create value for all of them in a lot of different ways. But probably the best thing that we can do is bring solutions that provide affordability for small employers and their employees. That's probably the best solution we do. And we do that through what I would call relentless value creation.
That's one way to say it.
I love it.
It's when this opportunity came to us and we heard the Costco brand, I was like, man, I feel so aligned with that brand because we do that every day. And if you think about healthcare and what drives the cost of insurance, it is people needing to use those services. Well, no one wants to be using healthcare. If you're using it, there's something amiss, right?
Mm.
And so what can we do to create relentless value for a service that people really are only using generally because they need? So for us, there's really two main levers that we look at to create that value. One is the price per service. How are you determining a fair price? And then two is what levers can you pull for people to need less in services? So we package up solutions on both those fronts to create that value. On the price per service side, it's the PBM partner, right? That transparent PBM partner who doesn't have skin in the game either.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get the right cost structure for the group and for the member. That's essential to having a good value creation strategy. The network is also the other big piece. You know, with your guys' program, you offer two different options. One, the more traditional Cigna network, which is fantastic network, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great discounts, great price per unit. You also have that alternative network, which is a great way to create even more value for those employers and reduce that price even
pricing,
more.
yeah.
Exactly. So that's, the levers we pull on the price per unit. But I think for us, our biggest passion is how do you help people not need so much? Knowing people don't want to have to go to the doctor, where can you engage either the doctor or that member to help them manage their own conditions, their lifestyle choices, all those things. And we've got a number of different programs in place that eligible members can opt into. And it really comes down to coaching and education, right? If you're not feeling good about your day, it's hard to feel good about your health. If you're not making good lifestyle choices, then you maybe need an accountability partner. And we bring programs for that to help you work on that too. So those are the two big tools that we have in place to create that relentless value.
I love that because, Mike knows, we are, I'm going to use yours for your phrase, relentless on our large group markets for sure. And the fact that you do it on small group, because small business does not have those advocates to find those triggers, right? And our triggers are always the first two. It's the network number one, and it's pharmacy number two. That I think whatever size of group, that those are the big. It's 80% of your spend, right? So the fact that you can do that for a small group employers is super impressive.
So one thing we've all been kind of talking about a little bit is the collaboration that we built together to support the CBC Health Insurance Marketplace for Costco members. And one of the very creative things that we all worked on together was developing the Level Funded Advantage product, right? So first of all, that is a level funded health insurance product that's designed specifically for small group employers, typically defined as less than 100. In this case, most of the time under 50. So I guess from your seat, first of all, just describe level funded and the value it creates in and of itself for small employers.
It starts back in 1974 when the ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974 was passed. And that was really gave the ability of large corporations that had multi-state operations to combine. And as long as they took some of the risk themselves, they could buy insurance to back that up called stop loss insurance. They could be governed under the ERISA statutes. Well, as the Affordable Care Act started to take place, many of the smaller insurance companies in that space knew that they couldn't compete against the biggest guys, the Blue Crosses and the Uniteds and the Aetnas and the Cignas in that space. So they looked to the ERISA statutes and said, is this viable to use that type of mechanism, protect the employer, and launch a product? And that's what Allied National did was, and Lisa can talk a lot about how that came to fruition, but basically it uses the protections of the ERISA statutes, allows the employer to take a portion of the risk, but backs it at 100% exposure, meaning no exposure to the employer other than to pay the premium, and affords the employer then to play outside some of the more arduous rules of the Affordable Care Act while still having to meet some of the others, right? But then, because of how the product is structured, there is a surplus component. So if the claims run better than projected, the employer will have paid 100% of the exposure into the third party administrator. They get money back, and in our Costco program, 100% of that surplus comes back to the employer. If they create the surplus, 100% comes back, and that's a huge differentiator. I mean, I cannot understate what we have seen in this market is a lot of the platforms that use this type of program, the level funded program, have started to diminish the percentage that comes back to the employer. In other words, if the product can retain some of that, they can offset some of their costs, right? And we've said that's not how we're going to get there. We're going to get there through all of the things that Lisa just talked about. So that's how the product began. And then Allied National simply, took it and created bigger, better, and
so
more
you, essentially, you've taken some of these moving pieces that were, historically available to large employers, large purchasers, and kind of distilled them down in a way that can be served to small employers.
That's exactly it. It really is trying to, again, be relentless in that value creation and taking the best solutions for large employers and making it accessible. I look at it as kind of 3 Ps, and it's a stretch a little bit here, but it's really, it's protection for you. It's the right premium amount, and it's a nice premium refund or the surplus, right? And it's also predictability. It takes, we call it, there's different components of the cost, right? That you pay. Normally in a fully insured model, you just pay all of that to the carrier. You don't know where it's going and why. With level funded, you understand the components of the dollar that you're spending on your premium. Part of that is for sales and admin. That's for us in this room, right? To pay our expenses to do the work. Part of it's going to pay your stop loss premium, and there's 2 components of that. And then part of it is to go into that claim fund. And you get transparency to where all those dollars are going, and you get to see that claim fund, because as an employer, at the end of the day, that's actually your money. And like Mike said, if you don't spend that, you get that back. Instead of that going to a carrier for them to fund, their loss ratio, it's coming back to your pocket to spend on your employee benefits.
Well, and I don't know a small employer or a large employer for that matter that doesn't want transparency about their expenses. And you don't get that in the fully insured marketplace, right? All of the money goes into the carriers, Lisa said, and you don't get anything back if you run well. And if you run poorly, you don't know you ran poorly because more often than not, your renewals are predicated on how that block of business is running and the filings that the insurance company has to give. So that's the other thing that I think is really good. You get some transparency.
Yeah. 2 other things that we hadn't hit on there, and just not to get too nuanced, but premium taxes, right? So ACA plans all have premium taxes. You're talking about 2% of your premiums are going to taxes. That just goes away in a level funded or self-funded environment. And then, Lisa, you hit on a transparent PBM, and we've done whole podcasts on transparency and PBM, but majority of the ACA plans have PBMs that have all the high cost drugs on there because they're getting the rebates back, right? So they're incentivized on their profit line it drives up the cost of healthcare. We all know that, right? And so you've taken that away. You're not taking the spread. You're not participating in the profit in a transparent environment. And I think that's really important because that really doesn't even exist on other level funded programs, to be honest. Yeah. They still have that PBM piece that's not transparent, and they're putting those big dollars, for pharmacy in there, and then that's driving up the total cost.
So we've taken this vehicle called level funding, which is taking the essential concept of a self-funded health plan, historically available to large employers. We have, again, distilled it down so it's more consumable for a small group employer, and they're getting all these advantages. Now we have to take that concept and homogenize it with our role, which is creating value for Costco members. Mm-hmm. So that is what helped us to create Level Funded Advantage, which is our proprietary product, only available through the CBC Health Insurance Marketplace for Costco members. But in order to do that, and in order for Costco and Costco Legal in particular to be able to allow us to say this is an exclusive product for Costco members, we have to create value. We have to differentiate. We do that in lots of different ways, typically, right? We get there through pricing. We get there through value-added services. So, Lisa, can you help us describe from your seat, since you really were integral in putting this together for us, how we created the value within the Level Funded Advantage product itself?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's a line on one of your previous podcasts that I really liked. There's a lot of dirty hands in the cookie jar. And I can say with you guys, I've never seen that, right? And we get this really wonderful position as a TPA because we are kind of a neutral party that just sits in the middle of so many of the transactions. We get to see how everyone plays the game. Everyone plays the game. And I think one of the things that this program does is it just has integrity with every single component of it that's just different and unique in the market. So there's just relentless, again, value. I keep going back to that because it's just truth in it. I also think what you guys are doing with the accessibility for the quoting and online quotes that are available like they are, that's just a major service that's not available typically for small businesses. Just go and run their own quote online.
Contribution modeling, the whole thing.
Right. That's just a huge amount of value. And I think what we did with, leveraging that Costco brand and the Costco pharmacy and having enhanced benefits too at the Costco pharmacy, what a great value that whole program can bring to the table for members, which is just unique, completely unique in the marketplace.
So it is differentiated from your regular block of business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing that we've learned in working with Costco for all these years, internally they call it the salmon story, and that could be a whole episode in and of itself. But what it is essentially is you describe it as relentlessly creating value, but it's continuous improvement, right? And so it's one thing to say, great, we created this product, but that was X years ago, right? When I go back to my next call with Costco, or when I sit in front of them at my next meeting, it's going to be, what have you done for me today, right? What have you done for me lately, right? And so one of the things that we're getting ready to do is even create more value for Costco executive members. So can you describe what we've been working on there?
Yeah. Do you want to take this one?
Well, so let me tell you how it happened, right? And what the ask was, which you guys are well aware of. It was basically the two of you on a Zoom call saying, hey, this is the initiative that is being rolled out for Costco, which was essentially trying to add more value for executive members. And I had known that the block of business that you all have now put into Level Funded Advantage is running very well, right? From a profitability standpoint for the entire program, with a good number of surpluses coming back on a regular basis now to customers. So I picked up the phone, and it was not unlike how we started the program, right? 45 minutes later, after I pitched Lisa on the fact that this is running well and the value proposition that Costco wanted to extend to their executive members, Lisa said, let me pull a couple reports. I'll get back with you, but this makes a lot of sense. And at the end of the day, what the value proposition is that if you are an executive member firm and you go in and quote, your rates will be 5% lower in whatever demographic area that you're in. So the cost of an executive membership, I think, is in the mid $60 today.
It's an upgrade, yeah.
Yeah, and we're projecting that a 5% discount on an average rate of about $400 is $20 a month, $240 a year per employee, not to mention the dependents. That's meaningful for an employer. And I think once the economics work for you, and you get onboarded into this program, there is longevity because the block of business is running so well that you will have stability. Now, we can't promise it, but you'll have pretty darn good opportunity to have stability in this medical insurance space as a small employer and continue to create an opportunity for your employees to have coverage.
I mean, the renewals have been amazing. So I think we're in the 90% retention rate.
Exactly.
So,
Did I say all of that right, Lisa?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay.
You nailed
All right, there
it.
you go.
Better not go done for sure. I mean, I think we pulled some stats too. I think it's 46% of the groups are getting refunds. So it's, they're getting value on that side. And then we're also putting through renewal increases in general. Not every group, right? Every group has its own circumstances. In general, though, we're putting through renewal increases that are lower than medical trend.
I made that point on our last podcast with Mike too, that And it was similar pre-ACA when we had a program with Costco that if you say you're with Allied for 5 years and you're getting 5%, 8%, the market's getting 10, 20% increases, that over those 5 years, now you're so far under market. When ACA happened and we had to disband all of that, the average increase was 60% going into the ACA market, so it's devastating. A lot of uninsureds, it's not what the legislation was intended for, but that's what happened, so they couldn't afford 60% increase. But I'm thrilled to be in a position that we could offer that again, because that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And just quantifying that value, right? So, we did a lot of work in vetting this product before we rolled it out. There was a lot of eyeballs on it, not just in this room, but then even outside and having to have it approved by Costco. And we know that groups on average are going to be 20 to 50% below an ACA plan, up to 55%. We're actually approved to be able to say. And now we can say that if you're an executive member, that you're getting 5% off. So, I think that collectively we've done a great job at kind of staying on that true north, right? Which is creating value for members.
Sounds like you and Lisa have to figure out something for next year. You get the salmon story, right? Do one more cut.
Yeah. So great segue there, Robin. I think that could take us somewhere else. So we've talked about what we've done, how we got here, what we think we're good at. So, where do you see the industry going? Like, what's next? How do we continue to create value?
Gosh, it's scary. I'm sure you guys have seen the Wall Street Journal article out there about the largest expected increases in premiums for groups out there in 15 years. It's scary. So I do think there's just more work to be done to create more value. We already got a lot of the tools between the level funding structure, the cost containment programs we have, but I think there's a lot more that can be done on the drug side. There's just a lot more. And it's a really interesting space to keep looking at. I was hoping we'd see some more movement on that already with this administration. I haven't seen enough there, but that's something we're constantly focusing on, because it's just the next win for me in a lot of this is really more about price hedges, right? Mm-hmm. It's just an uneven market for sourcing of everything, every service, where it's at, how much it's being charged for, where drugs are being sourced from, and what the costs are. And I do think with some of the transparency rules that came out years ago now, they're starting to mature. There's starting to be vendor partners that are able to consume some of that information and make it a lot more transparent. So I'm hoping in the next 3 to 5 years, we've got just a whole nother set of tools to create better pricing structures for small employers.
We're making a big push right now in our large group employers to do J-code carve out.
Right.
We'll have to see, how much disruption that really is. I think most of our clients are going that direction now. And then some didn't want to do the cancer infusions because it seemed more disruptive, but others are like, okay, it's another step, right, into creating that transparency. Because and the crazy thing for us is like the TPAs, not you, but the TPAs that we have with our large employers on self-funded plans, they're charging $1 PPM to $2 PPM for the J-code carve out because they don't get the rebates back on the drugs.
Oh,
it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. But I think that's one little lever. You've been doing, PAP and couponing and all that stuff for a long time, but we have.
The other thing that I think you guys have adopted, and the technology just hasn't quite gotten to the small group area, but the ability to focus in on the the best quality performing physicians in the market, right? So you have your PPO network, which often is very broad and often has not had the transparency to identify the best outcome driven physician practices, right? A better return to work, less days, less complications, so less days in the hospital, less complications. And everything that I've seen, and it just makes sense, is the quarterback of that relationship is always the physician, right? And so how do you identify those physicians? And you guys have done a great job, maybe. And it's coming into the small group market. It's not there yet, but that's cutting edge.
Yeah, it's hard for, I think, the small group market because, one, we drive it with a HRA, right? And so they don't really have the funds to fund that HRA, and they're not the risk bearer. So I think that is, a conflict there, and so, and Allied's not a risk bearer either. So how do you drive that without somebody taking the risk of funding that HRA to get that lower dollar amount? But that's something to poke the bear on, Mike, for sure. Because we're loving the concept, and we're presenting it to all of our groups.
So, Robin, I want to, first of all, just say thanks to our guests today, Lisa Hodson from Allied National, Mike Hoffman from Arizona Benefits. Any closing thoughts on third-party administration, level funding, and our awesome product level funding advantage?
No, I just want to ask them what is their favorite Costco product?
Oh, no. The vodka? Is that
Good one, Lisa. Good. How about you, Mike? Favorite Costco product?
I have, if you went to the grocery store, you would get $60 of the products that you needed for that visit. When you go to Costco, not only do you get the $60, but you get the additional $400. And so I'm not sure I would stake out any specific product, but I am a Costco fan. I'm an executive member, and we spend a lot of time there. So there you go.
Well, thank you guys again. I think that was a really insightful look into how these products come to market and a lot of the moving pieces that are there, and the work that we do collectively to create value. So thank you guys, and thank everyone for tuning in to Boss Moves with Benefits.